All right, welcome to both the in-class and the virtual students. This is our second online workshop in the Community of Inquiry Framework. My name is Liam Poston. The date is January 21st, 2017. Please make sure that you ran your audio setup wizard before class starts, and if you get kicked out, that you rerun it as you come back in. We're going to start with a quick quality check. So if you could give me a green check if you see the following three things. You can hear me adequately for the in-class viewers. You see a red record button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and you can see quality check at the top of the slide. So Brett is giving me a green check, and so has Cheryl. All right, we'll move on then. We will be using the theme that things are not always as they seem to explore the three components of the Community of Inquiry Framework developed by Garrison, Anderson, and Archer and described in the book E-Learning in the 21st Century. So we'll start with our learning objectives. The first one is describe the three presences in the Community of Inquiry Framework. The second is explain how feeling that you are a valued member of a cohesive group is essential for an effective online class. The third is explain how the cognitive presence is composed of both a reflective private component and a discursive public one. The fourth is contrast the teaching requirement for an online class with a face-to-face class experience. And finally, explain how the teaching role has both an instructive and a facilitating component. So first thing we'll do is an icebreaker. Sometimes the world is not as it appears. Please go to the text box and tell me which set of lines are longer, the one at the top of each group or the one at the bottom of each group. So Brett says they are the same. And Cheryl says the same, but I've seen this one before. The bottom ones look longer. Good. Yeah, it is one that when you do have the fins on either end, that tends to make the bottom lines look longer. I've got another one for you. You may have seen this one also, but I'm going to change the polling mechanism here real quick. So, A, this box is darker. B, this box is darker. C, both boxes are the same shade. Or D, the shade depends on the position. And we have 3/4 have not voted and 1/4 said D. So I guess I was a bit premature with putting that up there. Let me see if I can do it again. There. All right, good. You said that the shade depends on the position. Actually, it is, the shades are both the same. It's C. And if you don't believe that that's true, if you cover up the background around them, you'll see that both sides of the boxes are the same. All right, so we're going to move on to the social presence. The first component of the Community of Inquiry Framework is social presence. All members of the class must have a sense of belonging in a cohesive group. In order to solve the next puzzle in the most efficient way possible, you all need to work together. Please use the pen, which you'll find is the third item down on the whiteboard instruments, and circle the Y's that you see in this puzzle. Brittany, you can help out with this if you want. So we found 3 of them so far. There, all 5 of them were found. All right, the class is not going to be able to solve the puzzle efficiently if any member of the group doesn't feel empowered to participate. This is a really simple puzzle, but think of the value of all members of a group if you're trying to decide a life and death ethical issue in a hospital. We need input from many different specialties of both medicine and other specialties. Communication is critical in an education setting. Can text communication take the place of oral communication in critical discourse? An online discussion board, a wiki, or a chat box can allow each member to post their thoughts on a topic. Doing it in a written format allows for more personal reflection before posting it, and as well it lets the introverts begin to participate. Emotion also strongly affects the success of a class. Emotion changes the class and is pervasive throughout it. So we're going to look at another little puzzle. Here's an elephant that's a little bit different looking. Students must be motivated and willing to discuss and share their impressions, theories, and knowledge. What's going on with this elephant? Please go to the whiteboard and without using any words, try to explain what's wrong with the elephant. You could use your pen to circle something or an arrow to point to something. So after you've made your attempt, could you go to the text box and use an emoticon to show your feeling about trying to communicate a complex idea without the use of words? Brett's confused, I agree. The legs don't line up with the rest of the body, so it looks like he has 5 legs. And it's very difficult to present that concept without being able to use words. And hopefully in a situation like this, if we gave it time and used written communication instead, even the people that need to process a little bit more in depth before they can figure out what's wrong with the elephant would be given equal time for people who are faster processors. All right, moving on to cognitive presence. Critical thinking and creative thinking are both required to make meaning. Please use one of the survey options, A, B, C, or D, to choose your answer to what is the relationship between critical and creative thinking. I'm going to make sure it's set up correctly. It is. Good. Brittany, are you going to vote? All right, well, the correct answer according to the people that put out this research paper is actually D. And they draw it like this, that critical thinking and creative thinking are fully overlapping circles that are both needed in equal amounts. In cognitive theory, the basis, the next of the 3 components of the community of inquiry is cognitive presence. We all have the tendency to seek information to confirm what we already know. It takes feedback from people with a different perspective to show us different alternatives and post holes in our theory. So in this picture, you can see that even though it's clearly all no's, by connecting them together to write the word yes, that's what jumps out at you. Metacognition means to examine your own thinking. Even more effective than individual metacognition is when the group examines their theories. This takes student motivation to become involved and willingness to own a perspective and consider other possibilities. The end result of metacognition is a well-honed explanation that incorporates many different perspectives. Could each of you please go to the microphone and give me an example of when you firmly believed something to be true and then had your mind changed? So, Brett, could you go first?
Well, that's a thinker question right there. I'd have to actually think on that for a minute.
Okay.
Give me a minute to noodle that, and I'll come back.
Cheryl, do you have an example?
Like he said, that's a thinker.
Well, I can give you an easy one. How many times were you sure it was sunny outside and looked out the window?
Since I work in the basement every day.
I'll piggyback off of that. I work in a windowless building, so I never know if the sun's out or not. Actually, I work at night. I work at night, so I never know if the moon's out either.
Right. So we can all have our mind changed based on the weather. All right, good. All right, so moving on to teaching presence. The last of the three perspectives is the teaching presence, and the teacher must develop an entire online course before the course even starts. They have to determine the learning objectives, develop activities that support the uncovering of these objectives, and then assessments that accurately determine mastery. So where is this man? Is he in the house, under the house, or outside the house? If you could post your choice in the text box. All right, so Brett and Cheryl, you both chose none of the above. Brett said your first guess is outside, so I guess this is another example of maybe where something changed your mind. And Brittany guessed it's all three, which wasn't even really one of our choices. But I use this to demonstrate that a teacher has to have flexibility and be able to go in a different direction if they get an unexpected answer from one of the students or want to explore something more in depth. The teacher must also balance the dual role of direct instruction and facilitation and avoid the impulse to step right in and clear up confusion, but instead allow the students time to try to clarify the problem, formulate a solution, and then test that solution. So I chose this image so you can get a little visual confusion just from the image. And the teacher has a second role of providing direct instruction. It's really frustrating as a student if I go too far down one road and then find out I'm completely off track with my answer. So the teacher has a role of providing responsive feedback and helps to prevent misconceptions that are not corrected by group inquiry. And this, I keep saying teacher, but actually I guess teaching presence would be better because another student or a group leader or someone with more experience in a particular area could also play that role. So we're going to integrate this information in the medical field, which is where I work. In admissions, I'm frequently asked why we've moved from a lecture format for medical students. My answer is that students can learn the fact or didactics of the medical education by themselves, but the purpose of a medical education is to teach clinical decision-making. Students must learn how to make split-second decisions on whether the patient's disease is fatal within seconds or whether they have time to do some medical testing. Online forums are being explored to fulfill this purpose because our students are on 7 different campuses during their clinical year and across the country during their 4th year. Could each one of you give me an example of how you could do it in your field of work? So why is online or the ability to do an online class important in your field of work? Brett says a better learning experience. And Cheryl says it gives her the ability to reach more students. All right, we're going to summarize our information then by saying that motivation is required to maintain interest and personal investment in the class. The teacher has a key role in designing and organizing the course, facilitating discourse, and in direct instruction. Teacher presence is directly correlated with social presence. A teacher can provide enough information about themselves so that the students can feel a connection. We did this by providing a photo and possibly by providing some work during an icebreaker in order to get the students involved. A teacher needs to also maintain a steady presence in the discussion forum, providing feedback, asking questions, and requesting clarification. This results in a greater social presence. Garrison cites studies in his book showing a relationship between social presence, satisfaction, and perceived learning. All three components of the Community of Inquiry framework are fully intertwined. I recently participated in a class where the teacher had no involvement in the discussion forum, and the discussion forum started off really good, but over the period of the 15 weeks, it got to the point where people were writing one-word or one-sentence answers because they knew that there wasn't going to be any feedback. So in-class students, feel free to stay and use either the text chat or the mic to ask questions. Virtual students, feel free to email me with a missed class summary and any questions. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you want any more information about these topics, these are the references that were used.